I'm Philip Gourevitch, and I'm going to be reading some of the writing of Liao Yiwu, who's a poet, a novelist, and a screenwriter. In 1989, he published Massacre, an epic poem condemning the killings in Tiananmen Square, for which he subsequently spent 4 years in prison. Since then, and inspired in part by the respect he had for his fellow prisoners, I guess a bit like Solzhenitsyn's Zeks, he has pioneered a new kind of writing in China, recording the voices and documenting the lives of those who are being left behind in China's economic boom, work that has made him one of China's most acclaimed writers internationally and one of its most censored at home. A collection of his portraits entitled Voices from the Bottom Up was published in the mainland in 2001, but Chinese authorities ordered all the copies to be removed from stores and destroyed. The book was subsequently published in Taiwan, and eventually, thanks in part to a translation from the Pan American Center, a translation grant, it was published here in the United States this year under the title The Corpse Walker, Real Life Stories, China from the Bottom Up. Liao was imprisoned most recently in 2002 for writings he posted on the internet, and this past December he was detained again to prevent him from receiving a prize from the Independent Chinese Pen Center at an award ceremony that was to have taken place in Beijing. We published several of Liao's interviews, the first that were ever published in English, in the Paris Review, beginning about 3 years ago, when they didn't win a Pen grant, but somebody on the committee said, "You've got to read this stuff, it's amazing." And the young translator Wen Huang from Chicago started sending us more and more and more of these extraordinary interviews. I'm going to read from one of those. It's titled The Public Toilet Manager, and it records Liao's conversation with an old man named Zhu, who spent decades tending a public restroom in the city of Chengdu. Zhu tells Liao how, before the 1970s, houses didn't have indoor plumbing. Everyone relied on public bathrooms, and they were poorly maintained. When it rained, he says, the streets flooded with human waste, and even cars couldn't get through. When the sun was out, the human waste dried up, and the moist stink could bring tears to your eyes. And yet, he speaks fondly of the old days when people gathered in the streets in the morning with their chamber pots to deliver their waste to the toilet, or to wait for the human waste trucks. Those trucks, Zhu says, were more punctual than public buses. While waiting for the truck, people chatted and caught up with each other over the day's gossip. It was quite harmonious. What follows is from The Public Toilet Manager, a conversation with Liao Yiwu, translated by Wen Huang. Liao, you sound nostalgic. Zhu says, yes, I used to drive a human waste truck. Nobody looked down on me because I was handling shit. My clients called me Master Zhu. Of course, we didn't have toilet bowls then like we do today. The structure of the public bathroom was quite simple. A wooden platform with many holes in it was laid on top of a pit. The people squatted and relieved themselves through the holes. Every morning a tube drained the waste from the pit into the truck. One day the tube was blocked. When I went to investigate, I saw that a fetus had got stuck there. That's awful, Liao says. Why didn't the woman go to the abortion clinic? Young man, we're talking about the 1970s. In the last decade, people have become more relaxed about premarital sex. In those days, without a marriage certificate, a woman would never have the guts to go to the hospital for an abortion. If her company found out, the woman's career would be ruined. The stigma would stay with her for the rest of her life. As a result, many girls would secretly procure medicine, and the public toilet was like an abortion clinic, a dumping ground for dead fetuses. Some girls took the wrong medicine and died. In China, life is cheap. But in those days, human waste was quite precious. Peasants didn't have access to fertilizers, and there were even people who stole shit from the latrines. Sometimes they would get caught by the street committee. People in that era had no sense of money or fines. All they wanted from those shit thieves was a soul-searching self-criticism. During the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s, they would blame the capitalists for poisoning their minds and making them steal. The punishment for stealing human waste was to recite Chairman Mao's Little Red Book. Liao, wasn't that a bit much? Stealing shit wasn't a serious crime, was it? China's a socialist country. In theory, everything belongs to the government. I understand that in the 1960s, during Mao's Cultural Revolution, professors were forced to clean the public toilets. Oh, yes, many professors and scholars were labeled counter-revolutionaries, and yes, they were assigned to clean toilets. I wanted to work, but the students in Mao's Red Guard wouldn't allow it. I still got paid, but since I was used to doing hard labor every day, I got really bored. Sometimes I'd sneak out to the toilet to coach the professors on their technique. Considering how Chinese emperors slaughtered dissenting intellectuals in ancient times, I think Chairman Mao and the Communist Party were pretty merciful. But the professors considered cleaning toilets a huge loss of status. On the surface, they acted as obedient as dogs, but many couldn't take it and hanged themselves with their belts inside the toilet stalls. People thought it was tragic whenever a professor died while cleaning a toilet. But I was born a toilet cleaner. If I have a sad life, nobody gives a damn. I think Confucius was right when he said, "All occupations are base. Only book learning is exalted." Liao says, "Your story triggers a lot of childhood memories. I have to say that the public bathroom was my second classroom. It was through a hole in the bathroom that I saw female private parts for the first time. It was shocking and exciting. From another drawing on the wall, I learned about sexual intercourse. I was only 8 years old. The only thing we studied in school were the chairman's red books on the communist revolutions. I had never imagined that in Red China there were people who would draw such dirty pictures. I became indignant, took out my pencil and wrote beside the picture, 'This is two counter-revolutionaries doing bad stuff.'" Zhu: "Were you one of those kids that does graffiti? That's a bad habit. You know, it's more difficult to remove graffiti than to sweep the floors or even to clean out the pit. And even when I finally erase it, the minute I turn around, new graffiti appears. Limericks, dirty drawings, vulgar phrases, political slogans, even paragraphs copied from published articles." Liao: "Those graffiti limericks were much more interesting than the ones we learned in school." Zhu: "You're well educated. Why do you memorize vulgar limericks like that?" Liao: "Sorry to embarrass you, but think about it. Only a few people in China can get their writings published in newspapers and magazines, and you need to go through rigorous reviews and various levels of censorship. By the time your article gets to the paper, it no longer resembles what you originally wrote. Many people will never have an opportunity to express themselves in public. That's why the public bathrooms have become the venue for free speech." Zhu: "Okay, I admitted I saw a very funny one yesterday. It was a limerick to commemorate Chairman Mao. It was pretty easy to remember. It went, Chairman Mao, if you rise from your grave, you will see embezzlers and raves. Chairman Mao, if you look to your right, hookers and druggies at your side. Chairman Mao, if you look to your left, fake goods are what you get. Chairman Mao, if you look behind your back, laid-off workers are deep in debt. Chairman Mao, if you look down, extramarital affairs are common. Chairman Mao, close your eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. People want their iron rice bowls back." Liao: "That sure captures the mood these days. But anyway, is your business good, Grandpa?" Zhu: "Barely. Then again, so many people are unemployed here. I'm lucky to have a business."